Welcome back. President Trump spoke to the nation last night, touting what he says are his administration's accomplishments, particularly on the economy, and laying out what he wants to accomplish in the new year. Joining us now is NBC's Washington correspondent Alice Barr. You know, Alice, cost of living top of mind in this speech clearly. He spent a considerable amount of time blaming his predecessor, though, and was adamant that his policies are working and will bring more relief in the new year.
Yeah, this was certainly the central theme of this address. There wasn't a lot in the way of new policies announced, which would be typical for having a primetime address from the White House like we saw last night. But really, he seemed to be bolstering his case that his administration is on the right track and has put policies in place that are going to bring those high prices down. He repeatedly referenced former President Biden, blamed him and Democrats for the massive inflation and the fact that prices have gotten as high as they are. But what we're seeing in poll after poll is that Americans are increasingly beginning to shift the blame to President Trump. We're now nearly a year into his second term, the first year of his second term, and they're looking for more of a rapid pace of bringing prices down. So he, again, is trying to show what he has on tap, what he's been trying to accomplish. And one thing he pointed to, because he did say, my policies are working, but sort of have a little patience, give me a little bit of time for these things to continue to kick in. He referenced the fact that he's going to be appointing a new head of the Federal Reserve and said that that was going to be a person who would be friendly to lowering interest rates. We know he's consistently criticized the current Fed chair for not doing that as quickly as he'd like. He said that would help with bringing down mortgage rates, something that could help the cost of living, certainly the cost of housing, which has been a major problem. He talked about negotiations with pharmaceutical companies to bring down prescription drug prices and tried to make the point both at the same time that the economy is doing well and also that he's going to be working on more things to keep it doing better.
I mean, you talk about prescription drug prices. I think a lot of Americans are concerned about just how much it's going to cost next year to go see a doctor as lawmakers are struggling to reach this agreement to try to bring down health care costs. Did the president touch on that at all? I mean, we've heard about this idea from Republicans to put money into HSA accounts.
Yep, and he referenced that again, that he wants to see that happen. He believes that the Obamacare system, you know, he has been opposed to from the start, and Republicans broadly see it as a broken system, the Affordable Care Act. But there are some 20 million Americans who get their insurance off of that, and because lawmakers on Capitol Hill have not been able to get on the same page about how to either extend those subsidies that are set to expire now in 2 weeks and are going to, on average, double insurance premiums for the 20 million Americans on Obamacare. Because there's no agreement on whether to extend those subsidies or to come up with some kind of alternative that would maybe be equivalent in terms of cost savings, we're looking at a cliff here of really serious increases in health care in the next couple of weeks. So President Trump again referenced the idea of sending money directly to Americans' health savings accounts. That's something that Republican senators tried to get across the finish line in the Senate, and it failed. And just yesterday, the House held its own vote and passed a bill that cobbled together some kind of Republican priorities on trying to increase marketplace competition and drive down prices, but did nothing on these subsidies. Interestingly, there were 4 Republicans who crossed over and joined Democrats on this petition that would force a vote on extending those Obamacare subsidies to head off those huge spikes in premiums. But that vote is not expected to happen until the new year, until January. And by that point, the premium increases will already have gone into place.
Hey, Alice, real quick, it's kind of the elephant in the room, but I mean, no mention of the military conflict with Venezuela?
Yeah, well, he did talk about the fact that the targeting of suspected drug boats in the Caribbean off the coast of Venezuela, that has driven down the amount of dangerous drugs entering the U.S., but he did not mention the potential for military conflict with Venezuela, as we've seen a buildup of U.S. military presence around that country and mounting calls for transparency, questions from lawmakers in both parties about the ultimate objective here. Dan.
Alice Barr breaking down that speech for us last night. We appreciate you. Thanks.